Welcome to Watercolor on Wednesday. Now, today what I want to do is I want to tackle that very, very elusive quality of emotion in painting. Emotion in painting is so much fun. It's so much fun to be able to test and try methods and techniques that give that push, basically, your emotion in your painting, and then someone else feels it. It's an amazing process. And when you stand there and you look at someone who's looking at your paintings and you see their expression and you can see that it touches them, I can tell you what, that's one of the best feelings that you ever get when it comes to being an artist. So this connection that you as the artist has with your subject and then your painting reflects that onto the public is the thing that I want to talk about today. Now, I'm going to go further in depth with this, and I'm going to show you this process in my Monday Live, which will be taking place this Monday, the 12th of January, 2026. So if you want to discover how I use this process to create a painting, a full painting, then join us in the live. What I want to do is I want to walk you through expression on the eyes. Now, I love drawing eyes. Eyes, I think, are one of the best things to draw, particularly if you're working on a portrait, because to be perfectly honest, you have to get the eyes right. And you have to get both eyes right. You can't just have one eye which is good and the other one which has just got a weird anatomy, or it's looking in the wrong direction, or wrong size or something. So you really do need to get both eyes right. But to get both eyes right, that's a combination of different things, proportions, placement, anatomy. So it's better to start off with just one. And because we're focusing on emotion, what I want to actually explain to you is directional lines. Now, directional lines is something that I speak about all the time in my courses, and a lot of people don't use, that yet could benefit from. When it comes to expression, when it comes to emotion in a painting, you have to identify it first. You have to be very clear what emotion or what expression you're trying to get across. You can't just paint a portrait. You can't just paint a face, or you can't just paint a scene. It can even be a boat or a landscape and just hope that emotion comes through. It has to be specific, because visual language has a visual, very clear alphabet or vocabulary that you have to follow to create that emotion or that emotion. But in any case, they're not the same, meaning that the choices that you make, the alphabet that you use, or the tools that you use to create that emotion will not be the same as the tools that you use for this one, which is why you need to be very specific, because something that happens all the time, all right? This happens all the time. And I can tell you this because when I judge, I see this in every single competition. All right. Eyes. This is portrait, okay? Eyes. Eyes. Eyes and mouth and face all work together. You know that, okay? They're all different groups of fascia, of muscles, of tendons that move all together in specific ways to create an expression. But the number of times that I see eyes open and a smile with no movement in the cheeks, no movement in the eyes. It's actually I have to hold my eyes open to show you, because when someone smiles, it pushes the cheeks up. That's not very natural smile, Janine, but anyway, you know what I mean. It pushes the cheeks up. The muscles and the mass of the tissue pushes it up, which look what it does to my eyes. It makes my eyes curve. This is really getting a strained smile. It curves in the same shape of that round, what do they call them? Cheekbones, but they call them whatever. Yeah, that round puffy cheek. All right, but it's also going to start changing my eyebrows and my forehead. So when you're creating an expression and you want to have an emotion coming through into your paintings, every expression triggers different muscles, different tendons, different shapes. Mouth will be different, eyes will be different, and it's the relationship between the eyes, the cheeks, the mouth, the forehead, which are going to create this expression. or that expression. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take one expression today, and I just want to show you a little bit of how I do that in a drawing. But honestly, if you really want to see how this is done in a bigger painting, I'll talk about this Monday. So jump on the live this Monday. So let's jump to my board and I'll show you how this works. This is my block of drawing paper. And as you'll see, I actually have one of my drawings in front of me. Now, this is under glass, so you may see some reflections. This is actually a drawing under glass. And all I want to do is show you basically with this one eye, I'm just going to focus on one eye, why the effect is so strong. And to do that, I'm going to use directional lines. So before I do anything, let's just understand what directional lines are, because you can use them in any situation, any subject, not just portraits. Now, directional lines basically work like an arrow. So if you understand that an arrow basically comes across and then has a head to it, let's call it the head of the arrow, it's basically something like this. We understand that that means go this way. If I was then to do exactly the same shape and have the head of the arrow going that way, then basically you would believe, or your eyes would actually go this way. So obviously this is not the sort of thing that we would put in a painting, but exactly the same principle is how we use directional lines in a very subtle and discreet way, so that in a painting it works. So the reason why the eye goes this way is quite simply because at this end of the line, there is something of interest, and at this end of the line, there is nothing of interest. And because this is more interesting, the eye goes that way. Okay, it's as simple as that. So what does that mean? That means that this line, I could basically have less interest and I could build up interest. And it works exactly the same way. You can see it. It works exactly the same way. This would therefore become the dominant direction towards the left. And you can see how well that works. Yet this works in a painting where obviously that's just not ideal. So these directional lines can obviously be vertical, or they can be vertical but going up or going down. They can be on a diagonal. Okay, so you can do them on a diagonal or going down on a diagonal. You can do them any way you want. You can do directional lines any way you want. Harder doing circles. Actually, I didn't do that one very well. Harder doing circles. Let's do that one again with less and more, but it still works. Okay, so directional lines are lines that guide the eye in a direction, quite simply. Okay, so directional lines are something that you can use to create a motion. So we all know that lines that go down tend to be weighty. They seem to be heavy. They will create weight. They will create a sort of stabilizing effect in the fact that it's almost grounded. Where a line which goes up, let's put a little bit more contrast, stronger at the top, less so at the bottom, they float, they go up, they lift. Okay, where these ones will go down. So this is the sort of thing that we can use in a portrait to make a smile, to make a puffy eye more puffy, to make a heavy eyelid more heavy. We actually use directional lines and directional shapes to create the weight, the lift that you want in different areas. So when I say directional shape, what does that mean? Because if here I'm talking about lines, a directional shape works exactly the same way. I wrote all of this out in one of my books, but I know it's something that I use in every single one of my paintings, but it's something that is so effective for creating very discrete effects, because it's something that's just not noticed. People just don't notice it. People wonder why the effect is there, but they don't see this. It's not something that you see in a technique. So directional shape is just when you have something bigger than a line but it's got exactly the same principle behind it. More and less, bringing the eye in one direction or the other direction. It's exactly the same process. So that way you can create a cheek that turns, an eyelid that sags. And it's so much fun. It's honestly, I think it's it's probably the thing that I find the most important in facial expressions, because you create the real effect, and you don't really understand it, because when you're looking at the subject, you kind of like, wow, it's like you really feel the expression. But is it just the shading? Is it the shape? Is it the drawing or the brushwork? What is it that creates that effect? And I can tell you one of the biggest things is actually the directional lines. So if I was going to, based on this information, just try and basically show you where the directional lines are working in this, you may find it pretty interesting. So let's let's turn this over, and basically I'll just work from this drawing, which was done years ago. So it obviously won't be the same today. It never is. And let's just do this really quick. So I may even make it bigger just so that you can see the shape more easily. All right, so let's make the shape. I'm here doing the inner eyelid being smaller on this side and being longer on the downside. Okay, so this is also a little bit higher than this side. All right, I might actually end up making a few more lines in here just to accentuate the expression even more. So looking for the shape and the round feeling. What you will see is I will put a weight down here because I want that heaviness. I will accentuate the weight down here. I will accentuate the weight down here because it's a heavy eye. I do not want to accentuate in the drawing that I'm doing here so much up the top. I want to put the weight down to create the tired eye. All right, I'm going to accentuate that more than what I did here. Same thing, I can do exactly the same thing in a negative fashion, meaning that the lines that I leave, the white lines that I leave for the eyelashes, same thing. I'm going to make them go stronger downwards. Okay, so let's just get some lines in and see where this leads us once we've got a little bit more information on the paper. Now I'm coming back in with a 4B pencil, just to get some darker volume in. But you can already see that I've accentuated the downward lines in the eye. you're going to see now, as I bring in more shadow, that it's going to become more visible, more accentuated. And so the expression should be stronger. Okay, so can you see how these lines are pushing the eye down? I'm bringing these diagonals down and darker down, lighter up. And that is actually creating that whole droopy expression. And I could work over it and over it and over it, and I could accentuate it even more. But you can see very quickly, just by using lines, that effect is actually is actually appearing very, very well. If I wanted to go back in, I've got my eraser from my pencil, and just lighten if I find there's any lines that may be just a little bit too strong. Just bring them back a bit. Just again, lightening the upside, darkening the downside. So these are things that are really easy. And I know it sounds like it's a drawing thing. And I know there's a lot of people out there that sort of have this belief that you don't need to know how to draw to be a good painter. But to be perfectly honest, I think you need to have some notion of drawing. You don't have to be a great drawer, but you do need to have an idea of space, of proportion, and how line and how shapes do create weight or lift or a relationship between one shape and another. So as I was just showing you, this is this idea of directional line. Directional line, we're going to need to bring that into our subjects, into our paintings, if we want to enhance the idea and the visibility of emotion. And it's a really cool thing to do. It's a really cool thing to do. But maybe you don't paint portraits. Maybe you don't want to paint portraits. Maybe you're telling me that, you know what, I think that's great, but you know what, portraits don't interest me. What if I was to tell you that if you were painting a tree or a person, it's exactly the same thing? So if I was to draw just let's just say a trunk of a tree, okay? So let's just say this is the trunk of my tree. Maybe I've got a branch coming through here. This is my branch. I have a branch coming into this part of the tree. The trunk keeps going up. Okay, so this is my tree. All right, this is my tree. This is my trunk. This is exactly the same thing. There is no difference. Directional lines are one of the biggest tools that you use to create expression and feel in your subject, and to create feel in your subject, particularly when we're talking about a portrait. That's where you get the emotional bond, the attachment. But you can do it with a tree, you can do it with a boat, you can do it with any subject. So here I'll show you. Let's just say that I want to create the same sort of mysterious tree that has a beautiful feel to it, a feel that you feel something, you actually feel like there's something beautiful about this tree, an elegance, if you like. So I'm talking about a softness. All right, so what if I was to just put in the shadows very, very quickly on my tree? Let's just say that the light is coming from the left. Okay, so let's just put some of these shadows in very quickly. All right, so I'm creating a tree. I want this tree to have some weight to it. I want it to have, maybe it can even have some bark, some loose bark down the bottom, and I want it to have that seated effect. I want it to sit. I want it to feel. All right, so let's create the base. Let's just say the base of the tree finishes on a diagonal. All right, the way that I've done it so far, I've got the same sort of intensity up the top, towards the left, or down the bottom. There is no difference. So therefore the eye has no direction. The eye doesn't know if it needs to travel up the tree, down the tree, across the branch. So I need to go back to this principle of creating directional lines so that I enhance the message, but definitely the mood and the atmosphere and the emotion. I need to do the same thing. Honestly, it is so much fun. I do suggest that you grab your pencils and start drawing so that you understand how this works, because when you can understand expression and emotion in a face, then you can apply that to a flower, to a car. You can apply it to a building. You can apply it to a boat. You can apply it to anything. But one of the main things, which is so fun with this, is that when you can get your emotion of a subject into your painting, and then again see that the spectator feels that same emotion when they're looking at your painting, that's the thing. And that would just be amazing. If we can start to get more emotion in paintings, then I think that would just be wonderful. So I shall say, have a lovely Wednesday, and I'll see you next week.